Well, hello, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to WeatherBrains episode number 576 for January 31st, 2017. It's the pre-show. This is where we share boring personal stories, humorous anecdotes, and say outrageous things. And we cough loudly into our microphones.
I was coughing to the side of the microphone.
Brian, you okay?
No.
No?
No.
Why not?
Because I'm fighting something too, but unlike
Nate,
I'm here.
So guess what I had? Guess what I had yesterday?
Yes.
A steroid shot.
Colonoscopy.
Oh, wow. Yes.
You talk about a hoot.
You got in on the tail end there, James. No pun intended.
Oh,
hang on. Yeah.
Terrible pun.
Because now, pretty soon you're not going to have to drink that crazy drink. You're just going to take a pill, and it'll take care of all the pre-work.
Well, great. Too late for me.
I know, exactly. Now we've already done it. Yeah, hey, the first show was on January 31st. You were just dyslexic, James, when you made this little cut that I found today.
There's no telling.
Yeah, the first show was actually on this date.
In 2006?
In 2006, that's right.
So David Black was the host, right?
That's correct. I had two pieces I was going to send you, and then I didn't send them when I thought we missed the anniversary. So if I can pick them up again, I'll see if they're worth sending to you.
We need to play some birthday music.
I know. Or happy anniversary, baby.
I don't have any birthday music here.
Little liver band.
I've got the Aubrey song. Where is Aubrey?
The weather goddess. I don't know.
She better get here.
I'm
going to call her a weather girl.
Big Brains Media presents the NFL Today.
we get some great stuff from our listeners.
My favorite one that still cracks me up though is the one where Brian was reporting from the hurricane and he starts going, building.
Yeah, the audio froze.
I still hear that, and I laughed just as much today as I did when I first started.
But some of this stuff from the early days, it's politically incorrect. We can't play it anymore. But wow, there's some funny stuff.
There's nothing politically incorrect about us.
That's true.
No, wait a minute. Wait, no. I'm sorry.
I think you've already been politically incorrect tonight, Brian.
Yes, I think so. So we're always politically incorrect. So what? Why would you not air anything from previous shows?
Blow way down.
We had a Tom Skilling hello at one time. James, do you still have that over there anywhere?
I don't know. My soundboard is so packed full of stuff.
JB Elliott, what's a fact that maybe we don't know about you?
I am an open book. You know everything about me that's to be known.
Have you ever milked a cow?
Yes.
That's some old JB stuff here.
Brian Peters wants to be your chief meteorologist.
Yeah.
Birmingham TV viewers want to change. They're tired of James Spann's cakes and
Some of this stuff is just great, man.
Coming down and feeling the wind. And let me tell you something. If you've never been in 30 to 40 mile an hour wind that gets rain blown with it, and then you pick up some sand, it's like, I think I now know, building.
Oh, that is just too precious.
We'll see more cloud cover by our Friday.
What's that noise I'm hearing?
Bring us some scattered showers by Saturday, only by a 30% chance of showers, and we will have some.
Somebody's talking about a chance of showers.
A stray shower by the morning on Sunday, but then drying back out by the afternoon.
Slow down.
Only about a 10% chance for showers.
It's coming down Kevin's line.
Yes, Kevin's channel. I don't know. He's got some goober in the studio there.
James, I can stick that first clip in the Dropbox if you want. I think it might be pretty good.
Well, the important question is, did you pass, James?
Yeah, man, I'm still alive. I'll be kicking for a few years. They got this new thing. They actually put 3 cameras in there. I mean, you know, this, I don't even want to think about this. It's just stuff you don't want to talk about.
And then they give you 8x10s.
Yeah. I said,
like-
let's stream it live on Facebook.
Yeah, that would have been good.
Now there you go.
That would have brought some big numbers on the blog.
The
That-
live exploration of the rectum and the colon.
That would have brought the internet to its knees.
Oh boy.
Yeah. Hey James, what
Thanks,
folder?
man.
Hey, where's that?
Must be live.
Where's that folder, James? What is it called?
WeatherBrains. We've got really creative on the title.
Oh, I see. Yeah, that was too obvious. I was like, it couldn't be that. All right, I'll put it in the 576 folder.
Somebody just made an untitled folder.
Yeah, that was me, but I didn't need to. I'll delete it. I didn't realize there was already a folder.
Oh, look who just joined us.
It's our very own weather girl.
I didn't get a phone call.
He's cruising for a bruising, Aubrey.
I didn't get a call. I didn't get a notification.
Really?
Yeah.
I did.
I send it the usual way. That's Google is just inconsistent with his Hangout
Yes.
thing. You never know. You never know.
Very much
Absolutely.
Quiet, numbskulls, I'm broadcasting.
I can't delete that folder, James, so it's going to become WeatherBrains 577 just for the heck of it.
Is this one that says how WB started?
Yeah, it's something you did. I haven't listened to it all the way through. I don't think it has to be censored or anything. So
Great. Hope it's not something ugly.
But not
here.
sure.
I'm dropping it in the soundboard. We can play it here. Let's see here.
This is our anniversary.
What are we, panelists or I don't know what we are.
I thought we're weather geeks.
Weather geeks. That's it.
Weather Geeks.
Sounds like a
Geeks and geekettes.
It's like a great show for a cable channel.
Yes, it does. Wish we thought of that.
No, I like WeatherBrains. We
I do too. This is the best name ever.
The domain was available. We got it for $8. Hey, you know. We're hearing some more strange noises now.
Oh, it's probably from my studio. They turn the sound down when they preview.
Oh, that's a nice set you got back there.
It's a big set, but
Very
it needs to be updated. See that wood, that ugly wood paneling? It's from like 1954. That was even before Brian's time.
Yeah, I guess so.
Wow. Your Brian started working for the National Weather Service.
Close.
So I got these
we got to invite Steph.
fancy headphones here.
Ooh.
Oh, I almost bought those. What do you think about them?
They had 10 of these. I walked into the Apple store near where I live not to buy these for some other reason. And they were just putting 10 on the shelf. And these are, you can't buy them. You just wait until March to get them if you order them. They're AirPods, you know, the wireless things. And I don't have it paired up with this Mac yet. I use it for the other stuff. I've not had time to play with them, but they sound good. I mean, I will say they sound very good. And it's very intriguing not having the wires. And I'm sure there are better alternatives, but anyway, it's interesting concept.
Do they stay in? I mean, do you feel like they might fall out, like if you're working out or something?
Yeah, what I'm going to do, you know, I do the workout thing Monday, Wednesday, and Friday. So tomorrow I'm going to take them down there and wear them and see if they I mean, there's no feeling of that at all. They feel very secure, just, you know, sitting here. But you're right. What happens when you're on a bike or one of these machines down there? So I'll put it through the gym test tomorrow. But I'm just afraid I'll lose them. But they go in this little thing here, and that's like a charger in there. You pop them in there, and they charge, and then you plug that in, and it charges the charger.
Interesting.
So, but they seem to hold charge for a long time. But yeah, the main thing, you won't lose this, I don't think. I mean, as long as you keep them in here, I think you're okay. I mean, if you just left them out lying around, you might lose them. So, but yeah, we'll play with those later.
So fancy, new technology.
Yes. Except that Brian's using a Commodore 64. Isn't that your computer, Brian?
That's it.
I love the Commodore 64. What a great machine that was.
Boosted by an Atari.
Oh, man.
I loved Atari.
With 16 megabytes of RAM.
Did they even have megabytes that back then? I think it was just a byte.
It may have been 16 kilobytes.
A byte.
The first weather computer we used for television here was in 1981. It was an Apple IIe, and the storage unit, the drive, was 5 megabytes. And I thought in 1981 we would never fill that up in a lifetime. And so now every photograph I take on this phone, it's like 15 megs for one picture. But 5 megabytes was surreal. I mean, it was just like vast petabytes. You just couldn't even imagine filling that thing up. But that's how we got weather graphics on the air in 1981. And that was the first time we went from the board where you drew on the plexiglass to a computer. So
no, new Dave Leonard.
Kind of
So that was in 81, the switch from the plexiglass?
Yeah, for my market in Birmingham, It was in 1981. In fact, in 1980, we were excited. We got the hand-me-down plexiglass from Channel 4 in Dallas. That we got their plexiglass map, and that was kind of a big deal. And because it wasn't plexiglass, it was magnetic with stickers. Instead of drawing the front, you could stick them on there. And that was very exciting. Didn't have to stay late and clean the plexiglass with the glass cleaner.
Remember how quickly the hard drive would fill up with lightning data on that radar too, James?
Oh, yeah. The ADC, Advanced Designs Corporation. It was an aircraft radar, and the lightning would just fill up the storage on that thing. I mean, it's like people don't appreciate what we have now.
I hope this is all in your book, James. Like how weather used to be.
Yeah, where is this book?
Back in the old days.
Yep.
Where is this book?
I look. It's like I'm busy. I write. I actually wrote some. I was off yesterday, and wrote a little bit, but it's going to take a while. It's just I have so many things to say and so many stories. And Kevin, I write a lot about you.
Oh no!
From the glory days, our glory days. That was a good little trio. We had Dan Satterfield, Kevin Selly, and James Spann. That was we all brought to the table these unique skill sets, and I thought that was a good little mesh we had back then. So.
I was not the accelerant back in those days, was I?
No, you were very polite and courteous, and
I know what happened.
Yeah, you went down the tubes. Hey, we're on television. Hello, we're on television. I apologize to our television viewers. I did not say hello and welcome. It's 8:30 Central Time, and we are now on television. We're going to start WeatherBrains in just a moment.
So, James, you know what they say happens like when somebody writes a political book or a book in Hollywood is it comes out, and the first thing that everybody who knows the author does is immediately goes to the back of the book in the index to see how many times their name is mentioned.
Yes.
So I should prepare for this. Is that what it is?
You sure will do that when this comes out, if it comes out.
I'm shooting for at least one.
No, everybody on this show will be mentioned somehow, but I've got the deal, and I just have to write. I don't want, and that's the one thing I told these guys. I don't want anybody else writing this. Now, yeah, you can edit and fix all the grammar mistakes and stuff, but I don't want some blow-dried boob writing my story. I have to do it myself, and I write like a third grader, so most people can read it. But I will unveil in my book some stories never told from the old days.
Well, we want the old stories. Those are gold mines.
Here's your show title, Brian. The show title is "I'm not going to read it. I'm just going to check the index."
I much prefer Kevin goes down the tubes.
Yeah, exactly.
But we could use that one any week.
Hey, Jim, can you hear us okay?
I can. Can you hear me?
Yeah. Oh, yeah, man. Man, you're
retirement home back there.
I think another show title possibility is Jim Stefkovich Unleashed.
Unplugged.
Unplugged.
Unleashed.
He is now retired from government service like Brian. He can say anything he wants. Brian has been saying crazy things for all these years, and he's still getting his checks. So
there's hope.
Jim,
hope. Yeah.
Jim, for tonight, I'm handing you the baton as the accelerant.
We want some crankiness, some fireworks, some excitement here. But let's get this thing going since we're on television. Yeah, this is a Tuesday night special. If you're watching on television in Alabama, we typically are on Monday nights, but I was off yesterday, and I was going to do the show at home, but we just decided it'd be better to do it tonight. So let's get the recorders going here, and we'll get this sucker started. And here we go in 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. This is WeatherBrains episode number 576 for January 31st, 2017. WeatherBrains is the weekly show that's all about weather. And we got a big anniversary. This is like a birthday. Bill Murray, we are what, 11 years old?
That's right. We're in like the 6th grade.
Wow. Yeah, we act like 6th graders on this show. No, there's like, a million weather podcasts now. But back in the old days, nobody knew what a podcast was. We launched this show on January 31st, 2006.
Almost in 1966, but we're not that old.
No, we're not that old. 2006, and I'm an early adopter. I've always been an early adopter, and I saw some people trying this new form of media, and it just intrigued me. And every weather person needs a creative outlet. Everybody on this show, you work for the Weather Service or you work at a TV station or whatever. It's a very structured day. And you are doing products and services where you don't have a lot of wiggle room to kind of express yourself. So everybody needs a creative outlet. I don't care what you do for a living. Everybody needs a creative outlet. And this, ladies and gentlemen, has become our creative outlet. So Aubrey or Bannerwitz, are you glad to have a creative outlet?
I'm so glad to have a creative outlet. And you know what? I actually think that when you guys were starting WeatherBrains in 2006, that was probably the time that I actually decided to get into weather. Because it was right after I was back from Louisiana after Katrina in December, and I went to see Mark Reynolds from WJHL shortly afterwards. So I'm going to say it's pretty much about the same time that I decided to go back to school for weather.
Wow. I think Aubrey listened to our show one time, and that's what did it.
Exactly. I said, I want to be just like these smart bunch of guys.
These stooges on this show.
So sophisticated.
What creeps me out of these young interns that come in here, Brian, then they'll say, Mr. Span, I've been listening to WeatherBrains since I was a little boy. I think, oh, brother.
Oh, boy.
This is why this guy's warped. So Aubrey is in Harrisonburg, Virginia. And did you get any snow up there last few days?
We got a dusting, or what they call a skiff of snow.
Skiff.
A skiff. That's the loose term for a dusting or a trace. So that brings our season total to 1.75 inches.
Wow. I have never used skiff on the air before. That does it. Next time we have a chance of flurries,
Skiff.
I'm going for a skiff.
Yep.
That's awesome. Brian Peters is the internationally beloved meteorologist who is standing by. Brian, great job last week on engineering I'd say that was the best engineered live shot we've ever done.
Let's take it on the road again. Let's do it.
The audio quality was great. That was a good show. So big thumbs up.
Get
to
an
you for the
external
engineering
camera
work.
and hook it up so we can all.
Yeah, that's the only thing we need. Just get James to buy me an external camera and we're all set. But we'll need a moving van to move all the equipment.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, I know what you mean. But anyway, I was great having Tim on the show last week. A lot of very favorable comments and big numbers,
Right.
download numbers. That was a great show. So thanks to your work last week.
You're
Kevin
welcome.
Selly looks cranky. I mean, you just look like you've got something you want to say. So just say it. Just air it out. So you get busy and you got to do your 9 o'clock news and your 10 o'clock news.
Yeah.
The floor belongs to you. Just air it out. Go.
Well, thank you. I actually can't stay very long tonight, which is why I want to come in early and first make an announcement. James, come over here. We have an announcement here at KFDX. This is our new weekend meteorologist. His name is James Stanley. He just started this week, and we're in the middle of training, so I can't really stay very long tonight. But I wanted to let him say hi. James Span's gonna give you a bad time.
Hey everyone.
Is that your real hair? Is that your real hair? Or is that a weave?
This is my real hair.
Really? Wow. What kind of product you got up in there?
All natural. All natural.
Wow. See, that's the first thing I noticed about these guys. So, where'd you grow up? I'll give you 5 questions. Where'd you grow up?
Northern Virginia, near D.C.
Oh, really? Are you a big Aubrey Urbanowitz fan?
Say yes.
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 Hey, no prompting to witness here.
Yeah.
Good answer.
So growing up, who was your favorite television meteorologist as a child?
Doug Hill.
WJLA, Channel
Yes, sir.
7.
Good choice.
Washington,
He
D.C.
interned there.
I got to intern with him.
Oh,
Wow. Very nice guy. I love Doug. He's still on the air. I mean, Bob Ryan is retired, but Doug is still going strong. So in one word, describe Kevin Selly.
Here it comes.
One.
Oh, boy.
We've known each other for 3 days.
Well, that's good. That's exactly what I want. In one word, describe Kevin Selly.
All right, go.
Energetic.
that's a fancy word for accelerant.
Yeah, that's what I was thinking.
Okay, your time's up. Go away.
Yeah, my 5 questions are up.
Great American is 2 words, I guess.
Anyway, that's James. We're thrilled to have him. I want to get, before you guys get into everything and I have to go, I put a link in the show notes, Brian. It's this article that Rick Smith posted that I want everybody to go and read. And the basic idea, as I understand it, maybe Rick, you can tell the story better, but I really think this is a benchmark. This guy, as I understand it, spoke at the AMS convention, which was a week or 2 ago. And he's a doctor. And his message was that doctors as scientists, have some responsibility to look at things that they might see as some sort of a threat and report on them. And he more specifically said, in a case of suspected child abuse, he is required to speak up and say, hey, something's going on here. And then he is equating that to what I think he's trying to go with this is he's equating that to weather service people, meteorologists on television, meteorologists in general should be looking at global warming and should be looking at that and saying, you know what, this is wrong. We have some sort of responsibility to be reporting on this. And I'm not picking a side on anthropogenic global warming one way or the other. Okay. I'm just not. But what I'm concerned about is the message that he is sending, that if somehow we are not picking up that charge and saying this is what's going on, that there is some greater threat coming to us. This almost goes back to the days of Heidi Cullen when she said, well, you need to take away your seal. But this feels like another generation of that. Rick, you posted this. Did I poorly or accurately or somehow describe this with any good, I don't know.
I think you did, and I would encourage people, the link will be in the show notes hopefully, and you can go check it out for yourself and interpret it how you think it is. But what I heard when the guy was speaking, and this was in the very opening session or ceremony at the AMS, the only time when all 4,500 people who were there are in one room together, that the message was directed at all meteorologists and everybody in the atmospheric science and climate sciences and anybody communicating weather information. It wasn't, I didn't quite see it exactly as that, as there was a threat or as, something ominous, but the gist of the message, I think you captured it.
Yeah. And it worries me a little bit because, we look at things like that, the George Mason survey that's come out for several years now, which we've all kind of looked at and gone, what exactly is going on here? Has just come out again. So maybe that was on my, on top of my mind, but it just feels like there is this subtle, but at the same time, very direct effort to try and influence stakeholders, message givers, influencers in a particular direction. And that concerns me a great deal. Again, not picking a side, anthropogenic global warming one way or the other, but this subtle push that we have seen for a number of years, I think is very concerning. And I think this has jumped over a big chasm or fence or something in making that message or trying to influence that message. Anybody, based on my terrible description of it, have a comment on that?
Yeah, my only comment, Kevin, is this guy will be in an internment camp by next Tuesday, so I don't think you have anything to worry about.
Well, again, I don't know him. I wasn't there, but again, the tone of it, it did seem more threatening to me, I shouldn't say threatening, more ominous to me. It just seems like there is a turn here from, look, you need to and not even, I didn't even say you need to pick a side. It just seems to suggest to me that if you're not paying closer attention to this, you are somehow in violation, and that bothered me. James, you want to say something? I know.
No, I don't have anything to say.
Oh, come on.
No, I'm not going to go down this road
Here
here.
it comes.
Did you read the article?
No, I have not. And, goodness, here's what's discouraging to me. And this leads down the road to politics and left and right and conservative and liberal and all this. It used to be so much fun to turn on social media and look at all the good weather stuff flowing in. Great weather posts, great weather information. And now somehow, and this is a list vetted by me of meteorologists. And now it's become all politics all the time. And it's just like, guys, what's happened to us? Is this all it is? Is there anybody left that wants to do weather or talk about weather? And that's why we blow buzzers. I don't want to do politics on this show. People follow us for weather information, not advice on who to vote for and all this. And it just...
I would love to know. I'm sorry, go ahead.
I'm just going to say, and I don't fit with anybody's box, those on the right and those on the left. I'm not in anybody's camp. People like me are just, everybody hates me, because if you're not with the left-wing guys and if you're not with the right-wing guys, then everybody hates you. I think that the truth and the right thing is somewhere in between.
Right.
And if we don't find some peacemakers, some people that are willing to find the things that bind us together instead of focus on the things that tear us apart, we're going to have some problems here.
Yes.
I nominate you, James.
I would love, and I will, nobody who would elect me. I would run on that. I want to run on the things that bind us together, and let's work together, and let's quit, calling everybody a demagogue and a xenophobe and a misogyny and all this stuff. Just forget it. Let's work on the things that bring us together. So that's the reason but I will, Kevin, I will read the article. I will read it, but I probably won't comment on it.
And now, having explained this poorly and said it out loud, I think I can maybe better verbalize what bothers me about it, is that if I want to sit squarely in the middle of this issue, the tone of that suggests to me that that's not going to be okay, especially in light of the George Mason survey that comes out. Is that I feel like all of a sudden somebody's going to come down from on high, the AMS or whatever, and it feels like what they're saying is, look, you're not allowed to sit in on the middle of this. You have to comment. You have to know. You have to understand. You have to be part of this. And if I choose not to, I don't want to see what's going to come as far as some influence, outside influence, or even some sort of punishment if I choose to sit in the middle, because I feel like that's where that influence is going. And to your point about Facebook, I would love, we will never see this, but I would love to know if the amount of if the time spent on Facebook in the last week or two has diminished because people are so tired of what's going on. Facebook will never tell us, but I would bet that it has gone down.
Oh, it's a cesspool. It is all it is. It's right wing and left wing junk, and half of it's not true on both sides.
Yeah.
I'm with Kat. Is there any room for somebody that wants to be in the middle and find things that bring us together, or do you have to be on these sides? And what are they going to do to you if you don't toe their line? Give you 10 demerits or put you in a timeout room, or what do they do? I mean,
Well, and that's what bothers me again about and see if you think this, and you can tell me privately if you want or not. But once you read it, if you think that's where this is going. I mean, if you think about, I don't know who the guy is, but if you think about the location in which this message was given, that's what came to me. And I found that somewhat troubling. But we're doing training here. I really appreciate you guys letting me hijack the program here early. And sorry, Jim, you're still the main guest, but I gotta run on. So.
Jim's about to hang up on us and run. He's not going to walk. He is going to run. But before we get to Jim, Rick Smith, you were at AMS, so just give us a 5-minute synopsis. How'd it go?
Well, it was great. It was in Seattle, Washington this year. I think they had a record turnout, over 4,500 people registered, 4,500 registered attendees from all over the world. And if you've ever been to an AMS annual meeting, it is just amazing, awe-inspiring, and crazy, chaotic, confusing. 25 to 27 different sessions going on concurrently, parallel sessions all at the same time. making it nearly impossible to see everything you want to see. But lots of really good talks, everything from, well, everything you can imagine, anything to do with the atmospheric sciences, communication, lots of communications, societal impacts type presentations. Those are the ones I kind of gravitated toward. There were so many that I wanted to see that I couldn't get to, but it was a great conference. Presentations will be up. Most presentations were recorded, including this opening session that inspired the article that Kevin's talking about, and those will be up on the AMS website, I think, by the end of February, so everybody can enjoy those for free when they're up there. And it was just a good meeting. Got to meet a lot of people. Met some of the new weather podcasters that are out there. Met some WeatherBrains fans, listeners from the TV world and the National Weather Service world. So just an awesome time. Kind of always energizing and kind of get you pumped up to go back out into the real world and do stuff until you get back to the real world, and then you realize you're in the real world. But no, I'm kidding. It was a great conference.
No, those can be just overwhelming. I went the last time I did an AMS annual meeting was in Austin a few years ago, and it was just this ocean of people. And at first, it's so overwhelming, and there's so many things you can do, and so many sessions, and so many posters you want to go see, and you really have to have a plan. You have to. The way for me, I just had to have a daily plan of the day.
Yeah.
So this is what you want to do, and then make some changes on the fly. But it was very energizing for me and invigorating. So I loved it. It's a circus, but I think it's great. So.
Yeah, they have an app. I had to have an app on my phone, and I had to plan it a couple of weeks in advance what I wanted to see, and you would see all your scheduling conflicts, and you get alerts. And it's if you're a weather fan, a weather enthusiast, a meteorologist, that's kind of a bucket list thing. It was a bucket list thing for me. Unfortunately, I've been able to go to several of them, but it's cool. It's a really cool experience. Everybody should try at least once.
All right.
So Rick, was there a WeatherFest this year?
There was a WeatherFest. I wasn't able to get there in time for it, but that was on Sunday afternoon. So I think that went very well. They had a big student conference on Saturday and lots of activities on Sunday. So it was just a lot of weather going on in Seattle, and it looked like Seattle basically the whole time we were there. I did see the sun a couple of times, but it was Seattle-like weather, which is fine.
All right. Well, Bill Murray, bring in our guest before he really runs on us.
Yeah, James, on this 11th anniversary of WeatherBrains, we thought we'd bring back one of our best friends. Been on the show several times. I don't think we've ever had time to get to just talk to him. Jim Stefkovich, welcome to the show.
Well, welcome. Thank you for having me. I didn't think I was going to be the main guest, but I'm honored.
Well, thank you for standing in a pinch. We had one of the editors of the Smithsonian Magazine, and she had to cancel at the last minute and be postponed for a couple of weeks. So I was thrilled to see that you could join us tonight.
Okay, so I wasn't your first choice. Okay, well, that's fair.
Well, no, you're always our first choice, but it's always in an emergency that we call. So hello, Jim.
I honestly just came on to find out what day of the week it is, because I can't tell except for the thickness of the newspaper. So,
and what days it doesn't arrive in your driveway, right?
Right, exactly.
So Jim,
most days.
We've had you on the show several times, but we always had a big purpose when you were here tonight. We just get to be sort of, as Kevin implied, unplugged. So, we've probably never really had a chance to listen to, how your career unfolded and how you got into weather. That's always our requisite question. How did you get interested in weather?
Wow. I just started at a young age. In fact, my mom, who had moved down to Alabama from New Jersey, originally from New Jersey, I moved her down about almost 4 years ago. And it's funny, she told me about a year ago a story that I never heard. She said, when you were about 2 years old, we really thought there was something wrong with you. You and my dad and I, and we thought we needed to take you to the doctor because you would just go from window to window and talk about clouds and rain and snow incessantly, to the point where we thought there's something wrong with this kid. And my dad being, he'll grow out of it. And it just started from there. I just enjoyed snowstorms. I would wake up every hour during winter events and measure the snow and, of course, take logs, just like thousands of other people got in the weather business, just bitten by the bug. Graduated from Penn State. And during that time, I was actually a student trainee at Techniques Development Laboratory, which is now MDL, and did some very basic programming, a lot of card punching. Boy, that shows how old we are. Only certain folks know what card punching is. From there, after I graduated, got a job at Waycross, Georgia. And being from the Northeast, yes, and being from the Northeast and going down to Waycross, it's kind of that old joke, I don't think it was the end of the world, but I could see it from there. It turned out
I think Waycross, Georgia is the hottest city on the planet too. Jim, it's hot, man. Ooh.
Well, you say that, James. When I got down in '83, it was one of the coldest winters. In fact, the ponds were frozen almost to the point where people were ice skating. So it was incredible. But great people, great friends, and I found out that I really liked the South. So from there, I was promoted to an intern. I was actually the first intern that the Weather Service now uses, and I went to Lake Charles, Louisiana, for 3 years. In fact, interned with John Toohey, who's now the NBC meteorologist in Miami. Forecaster in Atlanta, Georgia. Then at Southern Region Headquarters, as the next rad meteorologist, I was helping with the installation of the Doppler radars, the WSR 88Ds, across Southern Region. Then became WCM. Brian became the WCM in Birmingham, and I became the WCM in Fort Worth, and was there for 7 years. Then MIC in Jackson, then Chicago, and then finally for the last 11 and a half years here in Birmingham.
Now, you were instrumental in getting Tom Skilling on our show at the very beginning or early in the process. Jim, talk about working with him and working in Chicago.
Tom Skilling is one of the most incredible human beings I've ever run across. He treats every person like they're the most important person in his life. I've seen him at conferences talking to somebody on a street corner as we're going out to dinner versus a dignitary and or just an incredible guy who just loves people, loves weather, and just could be not a better friend to anybody. He's just wonderful.
Yeah, I was at NWA in Madison, and he was one of the keynote speakers, and he was just standing in the exhibit hall on Sunday, just talking to people. And I had to do a double take. It was like, that's freaking Tom Skilling.
Yes, which is a great video, by the way. If you look it up exactly like that, that's a great video of him on YouTube, freaking Tom Skilling. Yeah, Tom's just a great guy. He had time for everybody. And again, he just made you feel like you were the most important person in his life. So, and just a tremendous asset to meteorology.
Well, you were kind enough to hook me up with him, and we corresponded by email a few times. But as we came closer to the show, he went radio silent, and we had moved it to a morning show. James, I don't know if you remember this, but we Brian, we did it at like 9 o'clock in the morning on a Monday or Tuesday, and time came for the call, and back then I think we were using Skype probably to do the show, and we couldn't reach him, we couldn't get him, and so we were just going to go ahead and do the show without him. And so I kept laughing because the phone in my house would ring, and it would be like, I'd see who it was, and they'd be like, it would be some telemarketer or robocall or something. And finally I was laughing, and I said, the phone's ringing, let me see if it's Tom. And I picked it up and said hello, and it was Tom. And he's like, hey, where am I supposed to be? And we had him on, but he was the most genuine and gracious fella for that hour. And you're right, Jim, he did make us feel like we had been friends for life.
Yes, great guy.
So you talked about looking out the window in New Jersey when snowstorms would come. Talk about some of your favorite. You got to have a top 3 snowstorms that came from your childhood.
Oh, February of '78, when the 3 storms went up the East Coast, dropped where I lived, which was near High Point, the highest point of New Jersey, about 36 to 40 inches over a 3-day period, or 5-day period, 3 separate storms, and that was awesome. Been a lot of snow. I love to fish, and grew up ice fishing, did a lot of ice fishing growing up. So I loved the winter time, and really we had very little severe weather. up there. So I can count the number of severe weather events on one hand growing up. But when I moved down south, I really became interested in radar meteorology, just severe weather, and just that trying to help the public through severe weather watches and warnings really became one of my passions.
So, Jim, obviously April 27th has to be one of the biggest, and let's come back around to that. But what are some of the other big events that you covered in your weather service career?
Oh, wow. The Mayfest hailstorm, I believe that was, and Brian can help me out. It's time has passed. I believe that was 93. Yeah, when a huge hailstorm at an outdoor event, softball size hail, caught a lot of people off guard. It wasn't in our county warning area, but I was actually putting out the warnings for the storms that eventually became the Gerald tornado, that F5 that did this devastation down there. We had a lot of events in Texas, but they kind of all ran together. I think going to Jackson, Mississippi, one of the biggest events was the tornado in that it hit Hattiesburg that ended up being the F4 in Tuscaloosa. I think that was 01, if I'm not mistaken, in December. That was a really big event. And of course, there's been a number of events here, but of course, nothing's going to replace what happened April 27th.
Yeah, I imagine that event is still hard for us to talk about. I'm sure it's hard for you and the other your other colleagues at the Weather Service in Birmingham. But if you can, talk about that event for a minute and take us back. I was looking back at the Weather Service's webpage today at the pictures and radar images and, storm data reports, and boy, it just immediately brings it all back.
Well, it really does. And, I was so blessed. You mentioned Tim Marshall. Boy, I had a lot of one-on-one time with Tim because he lives in the Dallas area. And when I was at WCM there, he would teach me a lot about doing damage surveys and just learned so much from him. And again, another incredible human being who's just, he doesn't know a stranger. But for this event, I think April 27th, what happened was about a week before the event, we knew something bad was shaping up. And then, of course, you start doing all the briefings and letting everybody know, just like you on the media side as well. About 2 days prior to the event, I remember when the 12D data came in around the 25th. And I just got this overwhelming sick feeling to my stomach as we're sitting around analyzing the data, looking at it, discussing it. And, we were thinking, geez, this is going to be as bad as we ever thought it's going to be. And so that was really hard. And James and I have spoken about this many times, is that even though we got the message out, it felt like, did I do enough? Could I have done more? Did I really, really let people know how bad it was going to be? And so there's always that you wonder if people got the message. And I think for the most part they did. As it unravels, of course, as the head of the office, a lot of people forget that this came in 3 different waves. Started as around 1 o'clock, 2 o'clock in the morning on 27th. It affected Huntsville office and our office, a number of fatalities. And then the second wave, primarily.
And you had an F3 tornado in that first wave in Pickens County.
We did, yep. And then the second wave, of course, during the late morning, early afternoon, and then late in the afternoon. So as the head of the office, what you're trying to do is, for every event, you start wondering about your staffing. You got to put the right people in the right positions, and then you've got to adjust all your staffing. So that was my primary focus leading up to that event, is making sure that we're getting all of our briefings done, we're letting the media know, and we're doing all these things, but then making sure that we got all the people in the right places. So for the actual event, we used 14 out of a total of 25 people in our office. Just for the evening event, because I remember that, because we have 14 people and 2 amateur radio operators in our storm shelter when one of the circulations came right over the office. Fortunately, didn't touch down. So I was the coordinator for that event, and I just remember, we were looking at the storms develop, And then when we saw the sky cam, and I believe it was from ABC, we saw the wedge tornado on the ground in Tuscaloosa. We had a couple people overcome with emotion that had to be taken out of operations for a couple minutes to regain their composure, and they did. And they came back and did an absolutely incredible job. And one of the things I was blessed here in Birmingham is having one of the most awesome staffs in the entire Weather Service. And we just, rolled up our sleeves, got the work done. And what a lot of people also don't realize is that for weeks afterwards, we were providing a lot of decision support services because you had thousands of people out doing all the cleanup and all the damage assessments, which it took weeks. We brought Tim in for that as well, and a couple of other folks from NSSL. We brought additional staffing in so they could work operations and do the forecast and do DSS so we could go out and do the damage surveys. And of course, we're getting media requests from all over the world, basically coming into the office. And that took several weeks. So literally, everybody thinks about April 27th, but for us, it was basically April 27th for an entire month.
So James, you say that you were a child of the super outbreak, and I was a kindergartner of the super outbreak. Do you think having gone through that experience helped us that day because we were here in Alabama when that happened?
I think it varies from person to person. And for me, I was in high school when the super outbreak happened in 1974. My hobby was ham radio, and the principal allowed me to take 3 days off to go help. And understand, in 1974, there were no cell phones. And I've shared this story before, I think, on here, but the first assignment that night was the People's Hospital in Jasper, Alabama, which is a smaller town that took a direct hit from a big EF4. And for some reason, they set me up in the emergency department of that small hospital. And let me tell you what, for a 17-year-old kid, seeing what I saw that night, I think I had to experience that to prep myself for April 27, 2011. I've not talked about it publicly, and I've not talked about it privately, and I will not talk about it here, some of the things I saw. But I think it maybe helped me to get through that day. And as Jim knows, it was very easy to get hung up in the emotion, and it was just overwhelming. It was overwhelming. There's no book on how to do something like that. But I do think experiencing that as a teenager in the damaged areas with my ham radio gear helped me prep for April 27th. And I think for everybody that worked in Birmingham at the Weather Service and at these TV stations, every experience in our life, cumulative, good or bad, led us to that day. I think for Jim Stefkovich and those people, they were meant to be in that room on that day. They were born to be there. And I think for the people in my operation here, we were born to be in that room, and I was born to be on that green wall. And all of these things in our lives, even things that might not mean much to anybody, led us up to that day. And again, I've said this before, it was our finest day and it was our worst day because of the high loss of life. But Jim and I probably don't have the words to describe what it's like going through that. But I do think, Bill, to answer your question, going through 74, yes, was very important for me.
Yeah, I was in the 6th grade, and I'll never forget that day because, they used to do the Skywarn map on the Today Show. I don't know how many of us remember that, but
Frank Blair.
Yeah, they would actually show the convective outlook on the Today Show. And, of course, I was not going to miss that. I'd be late to school before I would miss that. And so when they showed that convective outlook that day that I think covered parts of 14 states, even as a young person interested in the weather, I knew that was bad. And I went and told my teachers that day that it was going to be terrible. And they poo-pooed me and sent me back to my seat because I was wanting to check the weather during the day.
Shut up, kid.
And the next day they thought, he's the kid that sees tornadoes because, the next day it was like a whole different ballgame. But I really went to bed that night expecting to die because the reports coming out of North Alabama were so severe that night. And all you had to act on was radio. Because television was not really doing a very good job covering it in 1974. I do remember Wendell Harris, James, who was the, anchor or news director. I'm not sure what he was at Channel 13 WAPI back then. And I remember him breaking into programming that night to, read some of the more distressing reports. And it really, I woke up the next morning. I was never afraid of weather again after that night.
Yeah, and you know, I've seen that happen a lot where people have a phobia, then something like that happens, they survive, they understand it, they gain knowledge, and knowledge is powerful. So people can get past those phobias. But yeah, that was I was doing commercial radio at the time, and did some commercial radio during the event that night, but then it became obvious they needed help. I mean, they needed help. And again, I can't operate a chainsaw, and I can't go be a paramedic, but I sure could set up my ham radio gear and set up a link back to Birmingham. And that was, for them back then, just as important as, you know, somebody with a chainsaw almost. So yeah, it was pretty wild. But
yeah, what were some of the kind of messages you were sending back and forth, James?
They needed medical supplies. They needed help. They needed a lot of things, that hospital. First off, they needed manpower. They needed more bodies. They needed physicians and nurses stat immediately, because of the vast number of people being brought in there. They couldn't accommodate all these people. And then they needed medical supplies. They were running out of equipment, you know, gear. And all this went back to the Red Cross, W4CUE at the Red Cross in Birmingham. You know, I need this, we need this, we need this. And by golly, the help came in coming hours. But for hours and hours overnight, I sat up there. And again, for me, what was, you know, the life-changing thing was watching the nature of the wounds of those people that were coming in. It was horrific. I don't think a 17-year-old should be looking at that. I don't see how 17 or 18-year-old kids go to combat. I don't see how 35-year-old men go to combat. But anyway, it was rough. So, you know, just an example of the stuff we live with down here. And next time, Jim, that happens, I think me and you will be at the cemetery. Thank goodness. But all it takes, Jim, is how many? How many does it take?
Just takes one.
One.
Just
so
one.
That's April 27th.
So Jim, after that, you know, there was you know, some, you know, commentary about false alarm rates and, you know, things like that, you know, affecting, you know, the impact of warning. So talk about what your office did there and how you took that challenge on.
Sure, but if I can go back just one more thing, the one thing I will share, well, a couple things. First of all, Bill, if you're willing to share this, the story you told me about your son, who was in Alabama at the time, that tornado, and you're seeing on TV, and what you said, that just sent chills. And you know, very long days after the 27th. But I just remember reading a story by then Brian Williams of NBC, who was in a hotel in Tuscaloosa talking about one of the young ladies who was working at the hotel there, who had been killed, and she was, you know, trying to work her way through school. And my daughter was not at Alabama then; she is now, but she was at another college. And I just remember reading that and thinking of my own daughter, and I just office, you know, before different news crews were coming in, and that just really hit home, and it just made me realize just the horrific pain. And I know for me, like Rick Smith, like Brian, like all of us, we've seen so much death and destruction from these tornadoes. But after April 27th, it for me, it got a little bit harder to see all that, because you just know what's taken away in an instant. But yet to see the resiliency of people here in Alabama, of being thankful that they were alive, and that the family was safe, and, you know, they could rebuild all this stuff. The people in Alabama are just incredible, more than any other place I've ever lived, and I've lived in 7 states. So after April 27th, we were faced, some by James and others, about what could the Weather Service be doing better. And of course, what a big discussion that has been around for a long time is the false alarm rate. Have a very high probability of detection, but at a cost of a very high false alarm rate. And for people who don't know, that basically the way we score it in the Weather Service is, if you issue a warning and it occurs in the warning, you detected it, and it's called a hit. But if you issue a warning, nothing happens, and it's a big debate now, what is nothing? But if a tornado doesn't occur, it's a false alarm. So we were pretty much the national average, around 75–80% on false alarm rate. And through a lot of work, especially Kevin Laws, John DeBlock, WCM, and Sue in our office, we just got to work on that, and we just came up with a couple of things, and I'm really proud to say that right now our when I say our, I'm retired now, but the false alarm rate at the Birmingham office, I think for this past year is somewhere around 30, which is way below the national average, but we've been able to keep a very high lead time and a very high probability of detection. So we're very proud of that fact. And so it's because of that, folks on the media have been able to say, hey, when the Birmingham office issues a warning, you better take action because this thing really means something when they issue a warning. And we're really proud of that fact.
And Jim, so now the false alarm rate in the 30s, the probability of detection's high, quote a number, and lead time's running what for Birmingham, and how does that compare to national averages?
Geez, Bill, I don't have that right in front of me. I want to say we're within a minute or two. Rick, what is the national average? About 11 minutes or so?
Yeah, I think somewhere in there, 11 to 12.
Yeah. Yeah. So, I mean, and the reason Rick and I, because we don't really focus on it, because I think the lead time is pretty good. It gives, of course, there can always be more, but there's also debate about that with a lot of the social scientists. How much is too much, and it all depends. If people are going to get complacent thinking they have more time than they actually do. So one of the things we worked on was the science side. We just went back to the basics. We started looking at over 300 meteorological parameters. What happens when the LCL, the lift and condensation level, is at a certain height? How many times do you get tornadoes? And we found out that beyond a certain threshold, and that's just one of 300 parameters we looked at, that when the LCL gets above around 3,000 feet or so, you don't get that many tornadoes. We issued a lot of tornado warnings for really high-based mesocyclones. And so we looked at things like that. And then another thing that I really went to work on this too was putting the right people in the right position. And what we did, it sounds simple, and I think a lot of folks in the Weather Service kind of do it. I'm not sure, so I'm not in every office, I don't know, but what we basically said is we kind of looked at it that everybody plays a vital part of the team. And my analogy is baseball. So if you're the star shortstop on the team, why would I make you the catcher? So there are certain people who just have an affinity to be on radar. There's others for social media. There's others who coordinate. There's others that do mesoanalysis of the environment very well. So what we started doing is now we put the staffing in place pre-event, particular people in specific roles before the event even unfolds. And I think that has been a huge part of our success because there's no more second guessing what's going on in operations. Everybody knows the role, stays in their lane, and I think that's made the warning program a lot better as well.
Yeah, there's no question, and we sort of watch these storms approach the western border of Alabama, and they may be tornado warned all across the adjoining CWAs. But you guys seem to, or did now that you're retired, but your team seems to wait just a minute about pulling the trigger, and in some cases, and in almost every case, that's turned out to be the right decision, Jim. It's been amazing for us as broadcasters.
Yeah, and again, things could change from office to office, and that includes the environment at times, and we recognize that. The boundaries could be shifting and things like that, but I just am very proud of the fact that I knew, and I still know, that when there's a warning situation in Birmingham, the right people are in the right position, and they know what they're doing, and they're going to make the right call. Not perfect, there's weather's never perfect, but we're really striving to be the best we can be.
Now we had John Murphy on a couple of weeks ago, and it was great having him on talking about OWA. How did you feel? I'm sure you listened to that show. I don't know whether you did or not, but how did you feel the responses from John were to some of the questions that we asked that night?
I'm very glad I never tried to go higher than an MIC. Those roles that those guys are in, John Murphy, Louis Uccellini, the other folks up there, A lot of pressure, a lot of things going on, and I think we're heading in the right direction. The thing that I will say from the Weather Service, the thing I was most disappointed in, is that the culture of the Weather Service appears now to be shifting more to extreme process oriented. As scientists, you have to have process. You have to have process to gather ideas, vet them, and then implement them. But in my 35 years, it seems to me over the past 10 years or so, the culture has shifted more towards the process and not finding solutions, if that makes sense. And I know that comes across maybe even a little harsh. I don't mean it that way, but it just seems like we're caught in this continual process. And, you know, a lot of money was spent on OWA. And I think the taxpayers deserve to have an outcome that benefits the country in forecasting and decision support and warnings. And so I'm very interested to see what comes about from that.
Now, I've heard some Weather Service people say, you know, the ship's been adrift for years. There's really not a plan like there was in the 90s. What would you say to that, Jim?
Well, that was part of the modernization, you know, and I listened to John, and he's right. For the modernization, it was a very detailed plan. I mean, we were implementing the Doppler radars, we were implementing ASOS, we were closing WSOs and making WFOs, we were changing the structure to include SUs and WCMs. Fascinating stories. If you ever have Joe Friday, the then director of the Weather Service, on it, and he tells a wonderful story of what it took for him at a personal cost to get WCMs and SUs across the entire country. That's a story just in itself. So there was, you know, and I was in my late 20s during the modernization, so it was to me it was just part of the job, but it was very detailed. Now, I think there's a lot more questioning, a lot more things going on that I know we're all struggling with staffing. Our budget has become really high on the labor sides. You know, we have aging facilities. I mean, think about it. We're talking about the Doppler radar, which is the WSR 1988D. Okay, this radar is about 30 years old now, and just like our facilities. So there's only so much tax money to go around and to get things done. So there's some hard choices coming up.
Yeah, no question about it. And, you know, we had Jim Sitkowski on a few weeks ago. So this is like part 2 of, you know, life after MIC, I guess. He actually hinted that there might have been some method to the madness of blowing up the HR end. Do you subscribe to that theory, or what's your opinion, Jim?
I am very disappointed in how the workforce management. Now, we've been briefed, even at the local level, by folks that have come in from NOAA and explaining it. I understand, again, there's limited dollars and you're trying to reorganize. But if I'm not mistaken, Rick, I don't know if you were there, but I heard Dr. Sullivan, the head of NOAA, got up and said it was a failed attempt at reorganization. And it is just that. It has been an utter failure. We have somebody in our office, I think this was back in October, who got a promotion, but his paperwork came in South Carolina, which means his taxes are being taken out like he's working in South Carolina. And it's like, oh, it was just a promotion. We just needed to change his pay grade. How did, you know, so there's all these kinds of issues going on. It's just one of thousands of examples. So if there was another area I'm most disappointed in, I'm really disappointed that workforce management was allowed to become what it did, and like Gary said, how long it's taken to try to correct some of these things. I'm really struggling with that one.
Well, now there's a job freeze, and there has to be near all-out panic in the ranks of the field offices, I would imagine, to some degree. Well, they may not even replace your job for some period of time, Jim. Well,
yeah, we're down. Yeah, the office is down 4 operational people right now, and we just lost our IT, information technology person who resigned and took a job with another organization. So being down 5 people, that's kind of rough. I think we're tied for the highest amount of vacancies in the southern United States right now. So the beautiful part about it, and you mentioned the angst from the employees, I never sensed that from our staff because we felt like we were doing the right job. People had our backs. The media has our back. The emergency managers have our backs. And they're just dedicated professionals like they are all across the agency. They were just going to get the job done. Just, let me do my job, let me get it done, and we'll do it to the best of our abilities.
So is that continuing in the face of some uncertainty with the new administration? Is that head down approach still working well?
Yeah, from all I can tell, I mean, I'm still in contact some with the office, just the check-in now and then, or to finish some things that were left behind on my docket, because now, with me being out, the way it works is that, you have a staff of meteorologists, but you have the SU, the WCM, and the MIC at most locations who also work shift, work severe weather, do damage surveys. Well, now I'm gone. The bureaucracy has really increased across, such that there's much more paperwork involved in not necessarily having to do with the weather. Well, now that falls on the SU and WCM to try to have to manage in addition to everything else going on. So it's quite a challenge. Has had that happen at his office. That's happened all across the country. I'm sure they're going to survive, but it's going to be at a cost.
Yeah, I'll ask one more thing, James. I know we're running a little bit long here, keeping Jim a long time tonight, but he's got nothing else to do. He doesn't have to be at work anymore.
No, the guy's retired. He can stay up here all night with us.
Yeah, so we created a little firestorm here on the show a few weeks ago, Jim, and we started talking about collaboration between the SPC and the local offices. We didn't mean to do that. Patrick Marsh and Bill Bunting and Russ Snyder are some of our favorite people, but can you comment on that in any way? How that collaboration between the central offices and the field offices could be improved?
Yeah, I think as Rick and Kevin had said on the show, it probably needs to have like a Bill Bunting or a Russ Schneider if they're willing to come on the show and address that. Bill is the operations chief, and of course Russ oversees the SPC. I think there's some technology issues that need to be improved, but I also think that there does have to be a culture change on the WFO side and on the SPC side. And I give the example of, the fact of the matter is the SPC information is much more than guidance. The media is using it, right? You guys are putting it all on your blogs and you're showing that. And people know what it means, especially here in the southern United States, because they're so in tune with severe weather. And when these changes occur and we aren't coordinated, collaborated with, and it's a two-way street, offices need to do a better job of this as well, then it just creates confusion. So I make it akin to, well, somebody could say the argument, well, it's really guidance. Well, it's really not, because I think we really take what the SPC says as very important information, which it is. But if it's like, say, WPC, QPF guidance, well, I can disagree with that all day long and change that. But on the flip side, if you have the Hurricane Center and they're going to issue a hurricane warning, they're going to coordinate with the offices. So let me make a distinction that outlooks and hurricane warnings and watches are quite different, but the outlooks are very important, and we've got to find a way to collaborate better with the SPC. And just like what said, it doesn't matter who's right or wrong. We're all in this game together. Everybody's looking at all the information, and we do have to get on the same page.
So, James, you want to add anything to what Jim said?
How about amen? The thing is, it's not about who's right or who's wrong. There are brilliant people that work at these forecast offices, the local offices, brilliant people work at the SPC. It's just sometimes we need to kind of coordinate and get our brains together, and let's come out with a simple, unified message. And I do agree there needs to be a culture change at a lot of places, and I know it's frustrating, but I still think despite all of this, we can come up with a simple, unified message. So that's our goal, and we're all going to work toward it this year. I expect good things to happen this year.
So James, you have the breaking news. You have the breaking news jingle close by.
Well, I always happen to have that close by.
We interrupt this program for a CBS Radio Net Alert Bulletin.
Dr. Russ Schneider just confirmed that he'll be on March the 6th. So we'll have him. And I understand Bill Bunting and Dr. Patrick Marsh are going to join us sometime in the next couple of weeks, too. So we'll have an SPC Love Fest over the next few weeks. But, yeah, thanks for bringing up that story, Jim, because there was a moment, and it occurred exactly when you mentioned about the Skycam, because I had a college junior in Tuscaloosa. And when I saw that video and extrapolated where that storm was and where it was going to go, he lived right off Hackberry right there in Tuscaloosa, which was just a block from 15th Street where some of the worst destruction occurred. I literally turned to the people in my office and said, I'm going to be going and getting a body bag tonight. And, while I was sitting there furiously, hammering on a blog, getting information out and beginning to, wonder if that storm was actually going to come to Birmingham. My first thought was, my 20-year-old kid is not going to make it through this day. And it gets really hard. I mean, I literally jumped up and stood on the table to look at the video that was on top of the, hanging in our office. And I was like, that tornado is going to go right through downtown Tuscaloosa. And it's just a shocking thing, because you begin to wonder, how will you deal with something like that? You don't even know. So, thanks for letting me share that. There was another guy in our office, our hotel business, that we had a hotel in Tuscaloosa that was up on Lake Tuscaloosa. And, I called him to say, Brian, look, the threat's over. You can bring the hotel out of tornado plan. And he said, Bill, we can't find my daughter. She lives on 15th Street. And she was a student at the University of Alabama. So we had to, we literally were, biting our nails for 6 hours until she was able to get in touch with her family. So, there were so many real stories that day that impacted us as meteorologists, too.
Let me just add, too, that I think what's also happened very positive since then is that the emergency management, including at universities, has just done a phenomenal job of preparing the students and faculties. Alabama has a model emergency preparedness program through Dr. Donald Keith. Auburn, James Corbett, fantastic program. UAB has a great program. So, it's not only just the weather service side and the media side, which is a great partnership, but it's the emergency managers who have really upped their game as well. A lot of the counties have gone to Polygon warnings with their sirens, which is phenomenal. So there's a lot of work being done with limited resources, and emergency management community has really done a fantastic job.
I keep telling James I'm done, but what are some of the counties in our CWA that have gone to Polygon-based sirens, Jim?
Well, I don't know all the counties by name. I live in Shelby. I know Shelby County for the most part, I think all of Shelby County is in the Polygon. Ones I know down in Lee County, Auburn, Opelika is. So there's a number of counties. In fact, I would say majority of them have gone.
That impacts the story on my blog. So thank you for sharing that. I'll pursue that further. So James, I'm officially through now.
Okay. And let me get a cheap personal plug in here before we do a couple of recorded segments. Chicagoland, I'm coming. Jim Stefkovich, his old stomping ground. I will be speaking at the 26th annual Advanced Weather Seminar that's put on by DuPage County EMA. It's a huge deal. I don't know if did they do this when you were there, Jim, years ago?
They did. Yep, called you DuPage. Yep.
But if it's 26th annual, apparently they did. But this year's event is on Saturday, March 11th, and this will be on the campus of Wheaton College, west of Chicago, and limited seating. I promise it's going to be good. So just if you're in Chicago, check it out. We'll have a good time. So let's take a quick break. We got a lot of things going on here. We'll come back, do some email with Aubrey. We'll have the weather roundup. We'll have picks of the week and much more as WeatherBrains rolls along.
WeatherBrains 101 with Professor Peters.
I've never had the opportunity to see one in 50 years in the weather business, but I've seen pictures. The phenomenon of hole punch clouds is extremely fascinating. A hole punch cloud is sometimes called a fall streak hole. These clouds can create some strange appearances in the sky that are often circular or oval and may sometimes be reported as UFOs. What could create a huge hole in the clouds reminiscent of the movie Independence Day? Such a hole, likely hundreds of meters across, was photographed in late 2003 over the northern Gulf of Mexico near Mobile, Alabama, but have been observed in many locations. Very unusual to see, hole punch clouds are still a topic of some meteorological speculation. The leading hypothesis suggests that hole punch clouds are caused by falling ice crystals. The ice crystals may originate in a higher cloud or be created by the exhaust of a passing airplane or a contrail. If the air has just the right temperature and moisture content, falling crystals will absorb water from the air and grow. But for this to happen, the liquid water must exist at temperatures well below freezing, a condition referred to as supercooled. In this environment, all the moisture needs is a surface to freeze on. Moisture lost from the air increases the evaporation rate from the cloud water droplets, so they dissipate to form the hole or the elongated circle. The now heavier ice crystals continue to fall and form wispy cloud-like virga seen inside and just below the hole. Water and ice from the virga evaporates before they reach the ground. This is just another fascinating example of our atmosphere in action and another reason to keep your eye skyward. If you have a question about the weather, drop a note to question@weatherbrains.com.
Looking beyond the atmosphere, here's Tony Rice with your Astronomy Outlook.
Keen observers of the International Space Station passing over our homes this past weekend might have noticed a dimmer dot leading the station. That dot is a Japanese cargo vessel, which detached from the space station's Harmony module around 6 a.m. last Friday. This craft is bound for a fiery end as it re-enters the atmosphere. Originally, it brought up fresh food and clothes and science experiments for astronauts. Unlike other cargo vessels, which can return those experiments to Earth for further analysis, this one is designed as an incinerator of sorts, and has been loaded with the astronauts' trash, as well as the giant batteries which were replaced recently in a series of spacewalks. But for the next few days, the spacecraft will be in the vicinity of the station and visible with the naked eye. Check spotthestation.nasa.gov for passes over the next few evenings and take a look for yourself. Elsewhere in the sky, the Moon, Mars, and Venus will form a nearly right triangle in the western sky after sunset on Tuesday, January 31st. The Moon will continue its path upwards each night, but Venus and Mars will remain paired up for several more weeks. Look to the west after sunset. That's your Astronomy Outlook. Follow me in RTP Hokie for more spacey stuff like this.
All right, ladies and gentlemen, time now to dig into the email inbox and let's see what's in there.
Letters. We get letters. We get stacks and stacks of letters.
Hello, hello, hello. All right, so the email, let's start with Jeff Podolsky. Hello, WeatherBrains gang. I find it rather neat that this week's show has been moved to line up with the first episode of WeatherBrains. I look forward to the show every week. I am one of those who have listened to and or watched every single episode, but yet Jeffrey says, yes, I do have a life. So thank you for making sure that you put that in. We appreciate that. We want you to be well-rounded. I hear that you all recently discussing the possibility of moving the show start time up to 8 p.m. Central, and I would love to see that so James can be there for the whole show like he used to be in older episodes. So longtime listeners, thank you very much from the suburb of Cleveland. Appreciate that. Charlie sent a great link, which I actually did not know about. A cool page from the Davis Weather Station called WeatherLink, which is a map of any personal Davis stations that have the software, and it's online. So maybe we can put that link up for the Davis Weather Link. And I found out that our Davis actually has the little compatible box in the back, which I did not know. So that was pretty cool. And I believe, Bill, you are taking John Huntington's pick.
Yeah, I love it because I spent a lot of time in Telluride, and that avalanche was incredible. And so I wondered if it, it had to have crossed the western end of town, Bridalveil Falls Road. And I saw some information from one of the Denver TV stations that said it did. They had to close the road for that to happen because that was an impressive avalanche. Thanks, John Huntington. You always come through.
All right, awesome. And then Rob wrote us, Bill, I'm going to bug the heck out of you about this. You said the hot seat simulator would be unveiled at AMS. Did it happen?
Yes, Lance Rothfuss checked in. He's the new treasurer for the National Weather Association. And Lance and I conversed this morning, and I got back to Rob. They did unveil it in Seattle. I don't know if you got by to see it, Rick, but he said it was a huge success. And I think it's going to debut back online on February the 15th. He said.
Can you share what the hot seat simulator is?
It is a really cool thing. We had it at Weatherfest in Norfolk, but it's and it's been around for a while apparently, but we're making changes to it. So we had like a sneak preview, sort of a beta in Norfolk, but you actually get to sit there and be the warning forecaster. And it gives you actual simulations of storms, and you have to actually draw the warnings and then find out whether whether there were any reports in your area. So it's pretty cool.
Oh, that's interesting. All right. And also a guest suggestion from William Kovacs. Would like to see you invite Jim Williams from HurricaneCity.com to discuss his hurricane database. And I believe, Bill, we have a booking possibly?
Breaking news, February 27th. Jim from Hurricane City.
Wait a minute.
We interrupt this program for a CBS Radio Net Alert Bulletin.
That's right. Jim from Hurricane City will be joining us on Monday, February 27th. So that's going to be a fun night talking about hurricanes.
Very exciting. So if you have an email you'd like to send us, email at weatherbrains.com. You can send us any great articles, picks that you think you might have for us, guest suggestions, also show topics, what you love about the show, what you don't love about the show. We want to hear your suggestions. So don't forget to send us an email at weatherbrains.com. And you can also find us on the Twitter and the Facebook, or you can follow your favorite and all your favorites.
And on that note,
when the weather ball is red, warmer weather is ahead. When the weather ball is white, colder weather is in sight. When the weather ball is green, no change in the weather is foreseen. When colors blink by night or day, precipitation's on the way.
We are doing the show on Tuesday, a Tuesday evening special, the 31st of January. Brian Peters, how warm was it at your house today? What'd you hit? And you, sir, are muted.
It was 74, very toasty.
Woo, Jim Stefkovich, got a thermometer at your place?
72.
Wow. Rick Smith, how warm was it in Oak City?
It's about 72 today. We were up in the mid 70s yesterday. I think yesterday Oklahoma City tied a record high of 76. I think the high yesterday was. So yeah,
it must be nice to be in the 70s.
Yeah, except
It
it's
is.
also dry and things are burning. So it's always
Aubrey,
a trade-off.
what did you have today?
We had 54 and ridiculously windy.
Yeah, and we had some snow up north. Saw some snow video from Pennsylvania earlier today. But
We've actually had people complaining about how warm it is here, James. They seem to be more unhappy about the warmth than they were the cold.
Yeah, they always complain.
It's too hot, too cold,
too wet, too dry.
Too something. But winter is far from over. I remind people down here in the Deep South, our biggest snow, Jim and Brian, occurred in what month?
March.
Yep.
March.
Yep.
It was a half an inch, right?
No. Parts of Alabama actually had 2 feet.
Yeah, it's not 2 inches.
13 inches in Birmingham. Thank you very much.
Yeah.
And that was
the old record of 11.
That was one of the lower totals. Some of the burbs, like Brian said, had 20 inches, which was just insane. That was the middle of March. And so, no, we've got a long way to go before the spring gets here. But, we're starting to see the tulip trees bloom and things like that.
I got jonquils popping up.
Rick, any ice or winter storms your way anytime soon?
Don't think so. Pattern looks kind of quiet. We'll eventually going to cool back off, get into a northwest flow, but it's just kind of dry fronts coming through, wind shifts, and not a lot of cold air or moisture poised to affect us anytime soon.
on Jim
Yeah,
Bob's Facebook page in Meat Market that we're going to have a 15-inch snow in Oklahoma City in 384 hours. That's got to be true. I mean,
that was a secret. I was withholding that information, but okay, you blew it.
James just violated the new AMS code of conduct there. But anyway, I was extremely sad that I'm not in Cook City, Montana, because one of our associates that you know, James, Nancy Galloway, Brian,
yes,
is up there at our hotel at West Yellowstone doing some renovation work, and they woke up this morning with almost no snow and went to dinner this evening with 2 feet on the ground.
Wow.
Wow.
That's big. I saw those winter storm warnings up there. But anyway, it's fairly quiet. And where we are, we're coming off a pretty wild month. Down here in the deep south for the month of January, we've had single-digit cold, snow, ice, sleet, major traffic issues with icing problems. We've had record warmth. We've had dozens of tornadoes. I mean, this has been a wild month. So the fact that it's nice and quiet, that does not bother me at all.
You know what that means, though, James? The most important number. 2.5 million page views on our blog this month.
Yes, ladies and gentlemen, always good for business. But, it was funny, the TV ratings, it's not January, it's February. This is when, now, of course, we're metered, so we get numbers every night. We know the ratings from last night. But when it comes to breaking down the demographics, the months when people fill out the diaries, that's February, May, July, and November. And so here we are in January, and our numbers went crazy. It's like the blog, the TV numbers way up here. When the weather calms down, it just kind of sinks back down. So here we are about to start a ratings book, and there's no weather going on. So, it's just, it is what it is. And it's the same problem the Weather Channel has. And that's one of the things that we are kind of looking at is where do we need to go from here in the television weather business? And I think that's something we got to do a show on that sometime, because I am not a good TV person. I am not. I am the worst due to my schedule, the number of products and services I have to do. I will literally walk in that studio, a couple of minutes before I go on television. Some people spend 3 hours making all these graphics, and I don't have time to do that. So my TV stuff's not that good, but I do know we can't do the same thing we did 10 years ago and 20 years ago and 5 years ago and 1 year ago. In that when I walk in that room here in 15 minutes, everybody knows what the weather's going to do. Everybody knows what the weather's going to do because they've been looking at it all day on their phone. And so what do? And I think we got to shake it up a little bit. We're so afraid that we're going to make these older people mad that watch these late newscasts. At some point, you can't worry about that. You've got to move on to something different. So I think we have to try a fresh approach. And I don't know what that is. Nobody knows what that is. But I think there is a solution out there, and we're going to try and see if we can figure that out this year. I would love to have some TV weather people on here and talk about that. But we got to do picks of the week now. This is where we go around the digital mahogany table that we are gathered around, and we share something related to weather. This could be a website, hardware, software, books, anything remotely related to weather. So let's see if Brian Peters has the pick of the week.
I do. One came in a very timely manner. It was from Janice Bunting, the executive director of the National Weather Association, and it is the January 2017 newsletter from the NWA. And I think if you want to know what's going on in the weather business, that's one of the things to keep up with. So that'll be my pick.
And March the 9th is the call for abstracts day, the deadline for for the annual meeting in Anaheim.
Yeah.
Very nice. Okay, and all these will be up on the website, weatherbrains.com. Aubrey, do you have a pick of the week for us this week?
I do. And it's going to be no surprise that my pick is the wonderful episode write-up of Dr. Marshall Shepard's Weather Geek special, Don't Call Me a Weather Girl.
Yes. So who was on that show, Aubrey? It was Ginger and who else?
Ginger, Jen Carfagno, and Janice Huff from New York.
That's awesome. One thing I do when I go speak in schools, I will say, and all you girls in here, all you girls, some of you are going to work in science one day, and maybe some of you guys. I try and, let these first through fifth grade girls know that the science is not some boys club, in that you can do this. So I think I do need to watch that episode. That's awesome.
It's definitely a great episode, and it's an old stigma for a lot of it. Most of it I don't think is malicious, but a lot of it is kind of an old stigma. So I thought it was very, very informative.
And Aubrey, wasn't that the first of a two-parter? Isn't the second part coming up?
Yeah, I believe it is a two-parter. I'm not sure exactly the full topic of the second part, but it did look like
the same
there's a second.
guest.
Yeah.
Yeah.
All right, Rick Smith, have you got a pick of the week for us?
Well, the AMS chose to release some statements last week in conjunction with the annual meeting, and they did a couple of these. One of them was a best practice statement that was released on January 22nd. And this one is of interest to some of us on the show, best practices for publicly sharing weather information via social media. And there's a lot of good information there. I'm hopeful that people will read this and get some good information. People took a lot of time to put this together. I'm afraid a lot of the wackos that are the most guilty of doing this will never see this. But kudos to the AMS for putting this out and at least providing out there some guidance, some best practices on how to do it the right way.
Yeah, Nate and I got to be a part of that. That was a lot of fun.
So if I read this, Rick, does that mean I'm not a wacko?
Showtime.
I will withhold judgment on that.
Yes, WCM to the core.
So wait a minute. So Nate wrote part of this, and Bill, did you say you wrote part of this?
Yeah, we got Rob Eicher was in charge of it for the AMS, and they asked us to be a part of it, and we were, we got to give a lot of input and got to actually write some of it back in the fall, late summer and fall last year.
And there's a lot of great links at the bottom of it. I mean, it's a really well put together document.
So do we need to send this to Snowman Ted and Uncle Fred's Facebook page that does the 2-week snow forecast, or do you think they probably just throw it away, wouldn't they?
Yeah, just send it to whatever penitentiary Kevin Martin's in, I guess, too.
Who?
Edit that out, please, JP.
Yeah, Jim Stefkovich, please pull us out of the gutter. Do you have a pick of the week for us?
Yes, alternative NWS on Twitter, because just about the point when I was about to blow a gasket due to the vulgar language and the bizarre comments, the site was taken down, which was good.
Wow. So explain that for those that don't understand, Jim. So this is a Twitter account. Who opened this thing? Do we know?
Right. Supposedly some employees of the Weather Service started it, according to their own bio, and then it was turned over to friends of the Weather Service, whatever that meant. But it has been taken down. I think it lived a very short life, and probably not a bad thing.
I think there's still alternative NOAA and some other ones, but yeah, the Alt NWS, I think, I'm not sure what got it taken down, but I know they were using the logo and some other things. So it's no longer there for the moment.
No, they've taken down the NWS Podunk, have they? I mean, that thing's funny.
Oh, no,
that I don't know who's doing that, but these guys need to get an award. That's awesome.
Absolutely.
That's funny stuff. And let's see. I think Kevin is probably busy. Mine, it's the Davis Weather Link site, which has all the data from home weather stations there. And again, all these pics will be up in the website, weatherbrains.com. But the deal is I've got to walk across the hall here and do some television, which means we got to wrap this sucker up. Weather Brains is typically on Mondays. We have been on Tuesdays a lot so far this year. We'll try and kind of get back on a regular schedule. And Bill, who are some of the guests coming up?
Yeah, we got some great ones. We got a blockbuster March coming up. James, really excited about that. But we've got Wayne Neely talking about hurricanes next week. We've got W.H. Maya, the associate editor of the Smithsonian, on the 13th. Phil Klotzbach on the 20th. Russ Snyder on the 6th. Chuck Doswell on the 20th of March. And Jim Cantori on March 27th.
And what's your pick? What's your pick of the week, Bill?
That big avalanche and Telluride that John
that's right.
That was really cool.
I got you. All right. Well, if you want to see the social media accounts we have, It's up on the website, weatherbrains.com. The email address, it is email@weatherbrains.com. We'd love to hear from you. So on behalf of the entire WeatherBrains crew, I'm James Spann. Thanks for listening. Have a wonderful week, and God bless.
Outstanding. Thank you, Jim Steffridge.
Oh, my pleasure. Thank you for inviting me.
Hey, Jim, that was awesome. Thanks, Jim.
Take us fishing.